Hi there, my name is Sarah Carolides. I am a nutritionist and the founder of sarahcarolides.com. I work out of Beyond Medispa in Harvey Nichols' Knightsbridge branch in London, and I'm here today as part of the Sunday Self-Care series. So our topic for today is 10 to beat the 10. I'm talking about the 10 pounds that we have all been putting on during lockdown. So let's get started. Even though I'm a nutritionist, my first point has to be about exercise. We're all missing out on that almost passive exercise that we get during a normal day, taking the kids to school, running for the bus, commuting, going to get a coffee, whatever it is. We're missing out on those extra steps. And believe me, it mounts up. So here are your choices. Either do one of the sessions online, the workout sessions, or 10,000 steps a day. If you've got somewhere nice to walk, now that it's sunny, especially good, get that vitamin D, important for the immune system. So 10,000 steps a day. Or there's my personal favorite when you're working and can't really leave the home too often, and that is the 10 minutes an hour break. Set your clock, 10 minutes every hour, get up. Run up and down the stairs for 10 minutes, run around the garden, put some music on, do some dancing, 10 push-ups, 10 burpees. I don't mind what it is, just get the heart rate up, take a break from the desk, do some movement, 10 minutes every working hour. Aha, I hear you say, what if my 10 minutes an hour takes me into the kitchen where the snacks are? That brings me on to point number 2, the snacks. This is a big problem for everyone. We're not used to working next to the kitchen. We've got the kids home. There are temptations everywhere. The banana bread we've all been baking, along with the sourdough, the biscuits, the sweet. It is really hard to avoid the snacking. So here's my tip. Every morning, prepare your snacks for the day. I've got my little tea tin here. I fill it with some nuts. Today I've got some almonds and cashews. I've got some sunflower seeds in there. I've got a little bit of dried fruit. And I've got some dark chocolate as well. And this is what I'm allowed for the day. No more than that. So I've got a decent sized portion. I'm looking forward to it. It'll keep me going. But that's all I'm allowed for the day. If you just let yourself go in every time you feel like it and pick up a random biscuit or two, you're not going to keep control on it. Our body doesn't give us the cues for thirst the same way it does for hunger. So oftentimes, if you're bored or you think you might be hungry, you might just be thirsty. So my tip is always have a glass of water first. The other important thing about this is that it's important to keep the body hydrated. And if you want to lose weight, especially, you must be hydrated. The body's very clever. If you're dehydrated, it preserves the water for the important organs, the heart, the brain, the lungs, everything like that. Taking fat out of fat cells just isn't that an important job, so it leaves it to the back. Believe me, it is much harder to lose weight if you're dehydrated. Alongside that, sports physiologists will tell you that for every 2% drop in hydration, you can suffer up to a 10% drop in mental and physical performance. So these are all reasons to keep the water going. So tip number 3 is 10 glasses of water a day to stay properly hydrated. So here we are on step 4 of our 10 to beat the 10. And step 4 is all about portions of fruit and vegetables. Forget the government advice for 5 portions a day. I want you to aim for 10 portions a day of vegetables, herbs, and fruits. And the more colour, the better. If this is your plate for a main meal, I want at least half the plate to be covered in a rainbow array of different non-starchy vegetables. They can be raw, lightly steamed, roasted, anything except deep fried, and I want that to fill at least half the plate. Then a quarter of the plate is going to be your protein. That's the meat, the fish, the eggs, the beans, the pulses. And then the last quarter of the plate is going to be the starchy vegetable. That's the carbohydrate that's like brown rice or butternut squash, quinoa, anything like that that provides the fiber to help the bacteria in the gut. So that's your plate. 10 portions of colourful vegetables, herbs and fruits a day. And if you think you're going to have trouble getting that in at meal times, maybe add in a smoothie or a juice. That's a great way to to add lots of extra vegetables and fruits in. Tip number 5 is about breakfast. In this country, we tend to concentrate on carbohydrate breakfasts. We have porridge or cereal and toast or a croissant, something like that. I want you to turn that on its head and have some protein and fat at breakfast. It will keep you full for longer. It will stop the insulin release, keep your blood sugar lower, and it will help with fat loss. So maybe think about some eggs and avocado, maybe some full-fat Greek yogurt with some nuts and seeds and berries, maybe an overnight chia pudding, something like that. But something that mixes in protein and fats for breakfast and save the carbohydrates for later. Tip 6 is about intermittent fasting. We've learned a lot about intermittent fasting in the last few years, and there's lots of ways that you can do it. But one is to restrict the number of hours that you eat every day. So in this case, we're going to suggest a 10-hour window and 14 hours when you're not eating. Now, the point of intermittent fasting is that it gives your digestion some time to repair itself. There's something called the migrating motor complex, which is a bit like a Hoover that goes through the gut when we're not eating and repairs and replenishes and just cleans things up. And the longer the window you have between meals, the more time you have for that to work. The other thing that intermittent fasting does is it boosts the immune system, but mainly it's helping with digestion, and that's the point here. So try it, see how you get on. So if you start eating at 9 o'clock in the morning, let's say, you're going to be finished by 7 o'clock at night. That's your 10-hour window. You can eat within there. And then for 14 hours outside of that, all you're going to have is liquids, water, herb tea, things like that. Now, if you want to look at this a bit more scientifically, you might be interested in step number 7, which is all about DNA testing. At Harvey Nichols, we have Revive, and they have their My Core package, which looks specifically at the genetics that are relevant for your weight. So this is individualized. It's a very simple saliva test. You just take a couple of swabs and send them in, no blood test or anything nasty like that. They will tell you your exact genetic makeup as it's relevant for your weight. So we're going to look at how well you metabolize carbohydrates, how well you metabolize fats and proteins. So we can give you a diet with the exact percentages of what is going to work for you. We can tell you what kind of sport you should be doing. We can tell you whether you're someone who's always hungry and maybe needs to think about snacks a bit more, whether you're somebody who doesn't feel hungry very often, so you can just go with 3 meals a day or even the intermittent fasting. So if you want to look at it a bit more scientifically, you also get a doctor-led consultation. You get 2 weeks of menu plans, so it's well backed up. It's all backed up by science. So if you want to look at it a bit more scientifically, maybe you want to think about step 7, getting a genetic test. Here we are at step 8 of our 10 to beat the 10, and this one is all about stress levels. Most of us have been stressed for the last couple of months, and when we have that low level of constant stress, we produce a hormone called cortisol. And one of the jobs of cortisol is to make sure that we maintain weight or even put it on. Cortisol actually encourages us to eat carbohydrates and put down some fat stores, because what it's doing is protecting us in case the next day we have to flee or fight or run away or whatever we might have to do. That low stress is encouraging us to keep the fat and the weight on. So dealing with levels of stress is very important if you want to beat the 10. Now, one of the ways to bring the cortisol levels down is actually to stop before you eat and take 10 minutes, put the screens away, stop reading, stop talking on the phone, make yourself a nice table and do some deep breathing. The act of breathing deeply is enough to switch the nervous system over from the sympathetic, which is when it's running on all cylinders, adrenaline, cortisol, all going, over to the parasympathetic, which means that all that calms down and the body can actually focus on the digestion, produce the acid and the enzymes that we need to digest and metabolize the foods that we're eating, and calm everything down. What's important with the breathing is that you breathe out for longer than you breathe in. So if you sit down, breathe in for 4, hold it for a moment, and then breathe out for 5 or 6. Repeat that 5 to 10 times. That is enough to bring your stress levels down, switch your nervous system over, and start digesting properly. So that is tip number 8. Tip number 9, leading on from that, is all about sleep. There are 2 hormones we produce that work for hunger. One is called ghrelin, and that actually stimulates hunger. And then there's one called leptin, which tells us when we're full. If we are not sleeping enough, it interferes with the production of those hormones. They've done studies that show that people who sleep for less than 5 hours a night consistently are more likely to overeat by about 300 calories or so the next day, because the leptin sensitivity has gone down and the ghrelin has increased. So making sure you have enough sleep every night is important for losing weight. I've had several clients who've wanted to lose weight. They're doing everything right, but until we deal with the stress and the sleep, nothing was going to work for them. And it was only when we dealt with the stress and the sleep that things started to happen. Now, obviously, one of the things that affects sleep is how much caffeine we have. So I do advise my clients to have their last cup of coffee roughly 9 or 10 hours before they go to bed. So if you're going to sleep at 11 o'clock at night, then you need to have that last coffee at lunchtime. Okay, we're nearly at the end. We have covered a lot of ground. We've talked about exercise, water, how to address the snack situation. We looked at getting 10 portions of fruits and vegetables a day. We discussed the importance of breakfast, whether you might want to try intermittent fasting, the 10-14 rule. And we've also looked at the possibility of a genetic DNA test. Finally, we've discussed stress and sleep. Which brings me on to tip number 10, and this is actually a treat. I want to invite you to contact us at Beyond Medispa and book yourself in for a free 10-minute consultation, either with myself or one of our expert estheticians, to discuss your individual nutrition, face, beauty, and body needs. Please come and visit us at beyondmedispa.com. You'll find lots more information there on nutrition and my top 10 tips. Or you can email me directly, sarah@beyondmedispa.co.uk, where I'll be able to answer any quick questions or book you in for that free 10-minute consultation. And most of all, I really hope that I'll get to meet you in person in Beyond Medispa as soon as we reopen. Stay safe and stay well, and thank you.